Hello there, Brian Benz here, Cloud Advocate at Microsoft. Today I'm going to show you how to install Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS, on ARM64 VMs. So you're going to run Kubernetes on top of ARM64 VMs, in this case the Azure Cobalt 100 CPUs inside of an Azure VM, and then AKS runs on top of that. A couple of advantages to that: it is cheaper than running on regular CPUs, and it uses a lot less energy for the same or slightly less performance. In some cases, you don't even notice the performance, but you are saving a lot of money and actually saving power as well, which is great for the future. Anyway, so let's get right into it. This is a GitHub repo. You can find it at aka.ms/armonazure. There's all kinds of instructions in here about setting up VMs and Kubernetes. But basically, the first thing you want to do, ARM64 VMs on Azure are not in every location as of the recording of this video. So you want to run a script or figure out some other way to find out what quota there is for your account, and also where the ARM64 virtual machines are that you can use, and choose a region that does that. In my case, we're going with Canada Central because I have some quota there and there's some available ARM64 CPUs. All right, the next thing we want to do, and there's a couple of scripts here if you want to do that from here. And it's going to tell you which of the locations has the ARM64. The next thing we're going to do is go into the Kubernetes service. There's a script we're going to run for that. Let's go into Visual Studio Code and I'll show you how to set that up. So the first thing you want to do is set up some variables. You have to set up some environment variables for this script to run. The script itself is called cobalt-deploy-to-aks.azcli. A little bit of trivia there. .azcli files are Azure CLI files. So you do have to have the Azure CLI installed here. Check out the prerequisites as part of this. You need an Azure account, of course, and you need the Azure CLI, and you do have to have Docker running as well. Docker has to be running. I don't run it from startup, so I always have to remind myself to do that, otherwise the script will fail. So the first thing we're going to do is just put these environment variables right into our terminal. In this case, we're running WSL on Windows, so it's a Ubuntu Linux running on Windows. And we're going to set up an Azure Container Registry as well, an ACR. So to do that, you have to set up these variables as well, which is your ACR name. Can't be any dashes in here. It has to be just letters. And then an ACR image we're going to use, and Cassandra is the name of the image, and then v1 is going to be the version that we put in the registry. And that's going to deploy from that registry out to our Kubernetes cluster. Our Kubernetes cluster is going to be called bbenz arm on aks-cli. The location is Canada Central, and the cluster name is the same as the resource group name. And the node VM size we're going to use is just a standard D2PS V5, which means it has 2 cores. It's about as basic as you can get of a ARM64 CPU to run Kubernetes. And we're going to have 2 as our node count. We can scale up from there, but the basic one that we're going to install and deploy is going to be 2. Next thing we want to do is change the directory to AKS. And then we're going to actually just deploy this. And I'm going to tell you what's happening in the script as it goes through. So the bottom here of the screen is going to be the script running. And the top here is going to be the script. I'm going to be describing what it does. It takes a little while, so I might pause the video at times when it takes a while to install something. But other than that, everything's pretty much live as it's being shown here. So the first thing we do is just check the CLI version to make sure it's okay. Make sure that we're logged into Azure. And then we're already logged in. And it's checking the environment for us and looking for the ARM64 VM sizes. It found some. Good news. And the node size we're going to use is already set up. The next thing we do is check to see if the resource group exists. If it doesn't, it gets created, and that's already been done down at the bottom. And right now, I believe we're doing the AKS cluster. So yeah, we're doing the cluster. So it's checking for the cluster to see if it exists. And then it's creating the cluster. And here's the command we use for creating that cluster. Basically, it's just aks create. We're going to use the resource group that I set up, the cluster name I set up, the location, the node VM size, the node count, which is 2, and then we're going to generate SSH keys, and that's so that we can actually easily get into set up the credentials for our Kubernetes cluster from our Azure CLI. I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And then we're going to use the Azure Network plugin and the Azure Network policy. And there's a couple of tags we're going to add here so we can find this easily when it's all done. And when it's done actually setting this up, and it does take a few minutes to set this up, then it's going to give me a notification that it's done. And then it's going to install the kubectl CLI and using the aks install CLI command. So that's an Azure CLI command. It's not the regular one for downloading and installing. It automatically downloads it and installs it and sets it up. And then you get your credentials and you use another Azure CLI command called aks get credentials to connect through. And all that happens kind of fast. So I'm talking through it now. I'm actually moving ahead of where the script went so that you'll see that come up as it goes through. All right, and then it's going to check for a connection to the AKS cluster by just running a kubectl get nodes. And then it's going to check to see if the ACR exists. And if it doesn't exist, it's going to create one. So there you go. We went through the creation. It's checking the cluster. It already assigned the credentials. And now we're looking to see if something works. We use kubectl. Yes, it's working fine. And then we're going to check to see if the ACR exists. And if the ACR exists, which it doesn't, it's going to create one if it doesn't exist. Okay, so it's created that now. It's giving us a little message about something that's scheduled for May 2025. It's just the way that it responds in the terminal. It's got nothing else. It's logged into the Azure Container Registry, and it's attaching itself to the AKS so that we can find things. And it's using AAD, so it's using the Azure Active Directory to actually connect. And the reason why is because that's more secure, or what we call Entra ID now. Even though it says AAD, we have to update that. And it's connecting basically the ACR to the AKS so that it can easily access the Kubernetes cluster, and that no one else can access that Kubernetes cluster unless they have Entra ID authority to do so. So we're basically caught up with the script now. So let's just scroll down here a little bit more. What it did is it logged into the ACR. It went AKS update, which connects to that ACR using the attach ACR command. And then what it's going to do is it's going to pull the Cassandra ARM64 image from Docker Hub. It's going to put it on my local machine. That's why you need Docker running. And then it's going to push it out to the ACR. And once that's done, it's going to give me 2 options for deployment. Okay, so now it's pulling the image. And it's pushing the image. So it actually just pulled it in. We got the Cassandra latest from Docker. And then it's going to, and Docker has several versions of it, including the ARM64 version. Interestingly, when you're doing this, you really do have to make sure you have an ARM64 version. The actual application itself, in this case, Cassandra, is, it's a database, and you don't necessarily have to have a build that runs on ARM64, but you do have to use a Docker build that runs on ARM64, if that makes sense. So it's an ARM64 version of Cassandra, which you should have, but you don't necessarily have to all the time. It's pretty interesting if you're using Java, because it's primarily written in Java, Cassandra. But then you do have to have a Docker image that has been built for ARM64. So hopefully that's clearer than the first description I had. All right, so here we are. We're at an option here. There's 2 options. The first one is, well, you can skip the ARM64 Cassandra deployment and deploy later. You can deploy ARM64 Cassandra directly from Docker Hub, which we don't want to do, or we can deploy ARM64 Cassandra from ACR. So let's check this out in the container registry. It should have pushed it up, and we can find it there now. So let's check that out. Okay, so here we are. If I go into my resource groups here, let's just refresh this. Should be right here somewhere. Events. It's a brand new resource group, so it's going to be somewhere here. There it is, bbens arm and aka.ms. That's the Kubernetes cluster, but I can get to the resource group from there. All right, so in here, if I go to container registry, and I look under services repositories, I can see Cassandra is there, and it's v1, and it's basically set, ready to go, and ready to deploy. Okay, so let's go back to our options and see what we want to do about deployment. So as I mentioned before, you can skip the ARM64 Cassandra deployment completely and just do it later manually, or you can deploy directly from Docker Hub, which we've already done. We already pulled it down and put it into our ACR, so why don't we use Docker? So why don't we use the second option, which is deploy ARM64 Cassandra from ACR. So we did push an image. So basically what we want to do here is we want to say 2. And it's going to go ahead and it's going to do a deployment. Let's look at what it's actually doing. So because we have a new ACR created, basically what's going to happen after that is we have to generate a new file with the new container registry name. So this is the file here. We do a cat command, which is Linux. You create a template and you add in the ACR name, the image name, and the tag name that you have for your environment variables. This creates a new file, and then it actually does a kubectl apply file, and it deploys that out to your AKS cluster. And that's it. And then it validates the deployment, and you can do kubectl get pods, and you should see Cassandra running. Yep, there it is. Cassandra, 1 of 1, running, ready to go in the nodes, and that's basically it. So what we did is we created a resource group, a Kubernetes cluster on Azure in our Azure Kubernetes Service. Then we created a container registry. We deployed that image from Docker Hub out to the container registry for Cassandra on ARM64. And then we deployed from the container registry into AKS. So more information, any other details that you need, including how to set this up and try it for yourself, is at https:/aka.ms/armonazure. Definitely check it out. It's in a repo. All the information is here. As I mentioned before, you can also besides from Kubernetes, you can create an Azure Cobalt VM and an Azure Compute Gallery that deploys a Cobalt VM as well. And there's some additional resources there as well. So once again, my name is Brian Benz, Cloud Advocate at Microsoft, aka.ms/armonazure. Check it out and try it out for yourself and enjoy.